Thursday evening, everyone. Super excited to be back with you again tonight to taste this series, blind series wine. We're doing a mystery wine tonight that's red. I know that much already. What else do we know? And more importantly, right off the bat, who do we know? Who's here tonight? Chime in if you're joining us. Let me know who's with us. Perhaps some of you joining us outside with the beautiful weather that we're experiencing. Our cabanas this evening started yesterday with lunch and then certainly carried through dinner last night and tonight. All the doors are open and the wind is blowing through them, a little breeze. It is spectacular. What a gift to have this in the middle of March. I know enough to know that it's not necessarily going to maintain, but nevertheless, you accept gifts when they come, and this is one certainly. So the Sanders are with us this evening, and Jan is here tonight. Cheers to all of you. And Carrie's here tonight. Hi. And Allison and David are here. It smells nice. Melissa's with us. Is Jeremy there too, I imagine, hopefully, unless he's out skiing somewhere. Trish, Andy, and Kathy. It wouldn't be the same without you, so I'm so glad you're here. Kathy's with us. The Longworths are here. I'm sorry I missed you guys last night, but I'm glad you could come in and join us. We have a good group, it looks like, already. I think I don't have an initial thought or idea about this wine, so I'm going to rely a lot on you tonight, which is interesting, which will be fun. So it's always worked out best that way. You guys, Kestenbaums are here, and you guys are the ones, at least, by your fire on your deck outside, as it should be on a beautiful night like tonight. So we won't necessarily ask you guys about the color of the wine then, because the darkness has befallen us, and you'll have firelight to look by, so your ideas about color in this wine might be a bit skewed by your environment, but that's okay. I would rather you be in that environment. The Millettes are here, yay! I'm sorry I missed you guys too as you popped by to pick up the wines. They have a brand new dog, a cute puppy, and that's a neat part about having cabanas now. People can dine with their dogs outside here, so that's a really cool thing. Craig and Lorna tonight, hey guys, and Eric and Wendy. Oh, I was right about Jeremy. He's not with us because he's on a plane, getting back from some jaunt around the world, which is exciting for him, and all the better. That means, Melissa, you get the wine this evening. So, and it smells lovely. So what do we have here, folks? What color? What's the intensity of that color? What does it look like? What do we know by looking at this wine right off the bat? Walk me through it, since all of you now are well-experienced old hands at this, including you, Rob and Kathy, who just joined us. And you guys had the seafood curry last night. Oh, good. Yeah, it's awesome. Hey, Anthony. How are you, sir? Mr. Vassallo is joining us. He was in the other night. Talk about having a cute dog. His dog has been a fixture at Field and Main for a long time, and he's here with, he's joining us tonight with Courtney. They came in for dinner the other night with their dog, and their dog is featured in a little picture in our bar, which at some point we might get to open again. But anyway, dogs are welcome. Kristen's joining us tonight and saying thank you, taking us back on target. A dark garnet color, cool. Yeah, there is a little bit of a browning element perhaps to this. I think kind of ruby in its core. Definitely not really purple, but yeah. Garnet's a nice call. Garnet to ruby. What else are you guys seeing? Cool. So a couple for garnet. That's great. What is it? Does it look like it's a very light wine? So when you're talking about the intensity of it, is it pale? Is it something you can easily see through? Is it medium? Or are you looking at something that has a deeper color profile to it? Kathy, yeah, you're talking about dark garnet with hints of brown. And then Kristen, you're really keeping us on target, which is awesome. So slow legs, yep. For those of you that don't have the wine, let's see if I can get you a better visual of this. I need to learn how to do this better. Here is sort of a visual of, I'm trying to get you the legs kind of forming. They are forming, but they are taking their time. One or two shoot quickly, but they form individually. So we're thinking what? Moderate plus alcohol here, maybe? Medium plus. John and Expedition Vintage is with us this evening. Hey, Guy. How are you, sir? Glad to have you with us, too. So, yes, there's a moderate medium intensity to this wine, perhaps. A a fair amount of alcohol, but not necessarily something like, we're not looking at maple syrup dripping down the glass. Yeah, Allison, I think medium heavy bodied, exactly. Medium heavy, medium plus. It's kind of clear, yeah, going back to that question about what its intensity is. It is, I would say, medium, right? So we're in the medium camp again, and as we talked about last time, a medium camp is probably the hardest place to be because that's where most everything is. The outliers on the robust side of things or the lighter side of things really present much more concise wines, wines that have more kind of character that is certainly identifiable from a blind context. And so having a medium bodied, medium plus bodied, garnet to ruby kind of colored wine doesn't necessarily help us a ton. So we're not like on a super easy trajectory right now with one particular varietal in mind. Think of, say, something like Riesling, for example, where you smell that petrol, you get some of the tropical flavors, you get some of that flinty minerality, and you're sort of down Riesling's path. I'm not down any particular path right off the bat with this. So we have some options here, which is neat. Nicole's noting that her puppy is making it difficult to pay attention. I understand that for sure. We've got a couple guests outside that were just joining us, and they're joining us with almost a sense of relief to get away from their puppy, which has been occupying all of their time. So that happens for sure. Kelly's got a perfectly grilled steak. Hopefully you're eating it too. If it's perfectly grilled, you want it just at that exact moment, but I think you'll enjoy that with this. It smells like it has a little bit of a meatiness, a little bit of an earthiness element too. Kathy chiming in with an exact understanding of this wine, saying that it's not Riesling. So she's usually out of the gate one of the first with her call on what the wine is, and at least at this point she's not calling Riesling, but she's definitely saying it's not Riesling. So I'm with you, Kathy. I don't think so. I don't think this is Riesling either. Hi, Christine. How are you? All the way from Michigan, joining us many weeks, which is awesome. We appreciate you being here. All right. So clean on the nose. It's clear rather to haze. It's clear wine rather, excuse me, with a medium sort of intensity. It has a medium textured quality to it, maybe medium plus alcohol to it, and a ruby garnet kind of quality of color. So this is giving us some indication, but like I said, not a ton of indication just yet about what this might be. Jan, you're never too late. Always glad to have you here and welcome. So we're just getting our way through sort of the visual look at the wine. What do you smell, folks? What's coming on the nose? Is this wine kind of light, moderately so, or very pronounced? Is the aroma jumping out of the glass? Did you smell something right off the bat? Or did you have to work at it a little bit more? Did you have to swirl it a touch? Did you have to let some of the wine form an aroma and let it kind of carry out of the glass? Oh, the Grassics are with us this evening. Hello, hello. Jan, you're smelling mud. So very earthy. Mud is about as earthy as you get, but wet mud, wet earth, I should say, excuse me. So Kathy's seconding that idea. There is a muddiness to this. How about, so that we would call, so in the acronym fruit, earth, and wood, we're looking for a few things, fruit, earth, wood. What are you getting by way of fruit? John's helping us there with a little blueberry, some spice, pepper, meat. It sounds a lot like a particular varietal. Anthony's picking up some leaves. And Allison is agreeing with the mud call. So we're getting some earth here, but the earth isn't like the forest floor. It isn't sort of kind of a mushroomy hummus element. It's much more about a wet mud, wet earth, and some of those leaves. So maybe kind of a composting, so quality of earth. Glenn's picking up some cherry. Todd, you're picking up some green pepper. Cool. Okay, so pyrazine element might be coming out here. Lorna's picking up plum. Jan, spice. So back to the question about whether this is kind of faint, sort of medium or moderate or very pronounced. This is pretty pronounced. There's a lot going on in this particular wine. And Erica, you're here. Yay, and you can join. I'm so glad you're with us. That's great to have you. Expedition Vintage is getting a little Land Rover engine. Described as earthy, bit of oil, age, but not petrol. Okay, that's cool. Kathy, you're getting black plums, earth, purple flowers, and pepper. Black pepper, I imagine, or some of that green pepper. So great descriptors, everybody. I mean, we've got a lot to work with here. So right off the bat, just from those descriptors, what varietal should we be considering? Any thoughts? And Jan's point is that there could be a little bit of age here. David's asking, could I be smelling some wintergreen? Yeah, you could. I mean, some mint quality could be coming certainly from a vineyard that has maybe some eucalyptus planted. Perhaps you might be getting some of that mintiness from that type of vineyard, excuse me, but you sometimes pick that up in California, you pick that up in Australia. And John, yeah, your descriptions were taking me right to where you're just asking a question about Syrah. Kathy, you're throwing out Syrah too. I think that's absolutely something we should be considering. Lorna, nice. Some Carmenere, cool idea. Cab Franc, perhaps. I think the plummy call and sort of the pyrazine green bell pepper, black pepper element, we should consider Merlot. It has sort of a reddish character. Some of that cherry that was there. There's a quality of kind of a medicinal cherry into fresh kind of Bingish cherry. But there's some raspberry element on the nose to me too. Jan's thrown out Shiraz, which kind of links that Australian minty element with the Syrah call. So maybe we're tasting Shiraz, maybe we're tasting Syrah. So that would put us in the old world and say France predominantly. In the new world, if we're talking about Shiraz, we're in Australia perhaps. We could be in South Africa. We could certainly be seeing something like that in California too, but probably not called Shiraz. Jan, the difference between Syrah and Shiraz is really just location. Syrah is what you'd find typically in the old world by name, and then Shiraz, you'll find that produced kind of in a style all on its own in Australia, but then depends on where you are in the New World. Some people will call their wine Shiraz. It happens in California, and I've definitely seen it done in South Africa, for example, where they'll call Syrah Shiraz, more in reference to the idea of what you'll find in Australia. So there's no real difference necessarily between the two varietals, but there's a lot of difference if you had, say, a Crozes Hermitage from France, that's Syrah, and a Barossa Valley Shiraz from Australia. They're going to taste quite a bit different because of the place and because of the winemaking. The fruit, though, the grape varietal is the same, just a different name. Melanie's noting a green pepper quality, but not the bite of Carmenere. And we've tasted Carmenere before where it's been pretty green bell. It's been pretty predominant. And we'll know a lot more as we taste this particular wine. The tannin structure, too, was usually a little bit aggressive on that Carmenere. We'll see. So Nicole is saying she likes France. So right off the bat, like France. Some of those aromas that we're getting, some of that mud, that earth, that meat is a good indicator of Syrah from France. You pick up black pepper, and then we're kind of headed there for sure. And I think to your point or question, is it a GSM blend? You could have Syrah and Grenache. Some of that blue quality, the blue aromatics that were talked about initially and early on, that could be certainly something we're tasting here. And so I get a lot of that blue character oftentimes from Grenache. And the Mourvèdre gives you some of that color and power. Smaller percentage of Mourvèdre usually, so Grenache Syrah. Absolutely, it could be. All right, let's taste this and see if we've got the fruit kind of nailed, a little bit of the earth. Are you smelling any wood before we head to the taste? But anything that is overtly wooded? I'm not getting a whole bunch. Some of that spice we called earlier is probably about the extent of it. I don't know that we're getting a whole bunch of like new oak necessarily from the nose. Ooh, yeah. Todd, dead on. Very dry. Yep, medium acid, medium plus, and high tannin. Tannins are there. They're medium plus to high for sure. Ooh, Melanie, to your question about Bordeaux blend, we should consider it. It should be, from what we talked about, there's enough indicators that we should consider sort of a Merlot dominant Bordeaux blend. I think that would be worth talking about for sure. On tasting this, I don't know. The tannins are really fine. There's like a fine layer of dust in the form of the tannins on this, and that is drawing John into the Northern Rome kind of style of Syrah. I think the profile kind of the wine being a little bit lighter too would take me away from Shiraz. Generally, you're getting a little bit more black quality to a Shiraz from Australia, from a really warm climate. So not sure I would head that direction. Whew. Yeah, I just opened and poured. So in deference to Kristen, who's saying that they opened it about 20 minutes ago and the tannins have softened a touch, that's helpful to know. I think that I would put this back in a youthful camp. Chris is asking about Carignan. That's a very cool call. Carignan's a great variety that you get from the Rhone area, but certainly also kind of southern France. And it might have, I was just kind of wrestling with the tannin and thinking my way through Cinsault, Carignan, Syrah. I'm not getting the black pepper element that you might get there. The meatiness is still a little bit present. So Kathy's agreeing with that idea with black pepper, not as strongly as if this was Syrah. Right bank Merlot dominant. Yes, Melanie, to your question there, right bank. So the right bank of Bordeaux is Merlot dominant usually. So that means that most of the blends that are coming from the right bank or the north side of Bordeaux, the rivers that are in Bordeaux, there's a two-river kind of situation that comes into a large river that moves out to the west. That northern side of the world of Bordeaux, you get Merlot and more clay soils. And so Merlot would give you the characteristics of kind of that plumminess and some of that pyrazine element. I'm not sure it would give you the same level of tannin here, although maybe. But usually like more, let's talk about tannin for a second. Like sometimes tannin is in these chunks in the wine and it just kind of, it lodges in places all over. Sometimes the tannin just seems like a long silk rope and it's there, it's everywhere, but it's so pleasant. Sometimes the tannin seems like, I just described it as like a layer of dust, just sort of hangs there and it's fine, but it coats. Sometimes it is powdery and so it's lifted and it's everywhere, but it's light. And sometimes it's just a faint hint of tannin that lingers in places throughout the palate, but not everywhere, right? It just kind of, you take a sip and then toward the finish there's a little bit of a tannin quality to it. I was tasting this morning with the Virginia Governor's Cup winner, Luca Pasquina, and he said basically Nebbiolo has this hidden tannin quality that, or I think Jay Yeoman called it that, a hidden tannin quality that just jumps at the back of the throat. This sort of has a dominant tannin quality that's powdery everywhere. And so, yeah, back to Carignan. Carignan and even Cinsault to some extent, but Carignan has some of that. We could be tasting some old vine Carignan from southern France. That'd be kind of neat. Would this be Zinfandel? Some of what we described, yeah, could put you in a Zinfandel camp. Some of the redder fruit. I don't know that the tannin would be this kind of quality tannin, and I don't know if I'm headed to the new world more than I'm headed to the old world with this, but you should consider Zinfandel. It's not a bad thought at all. And Robert's talking about the profile of the wine on the palate, right? So this is a robust wine he's describing, I think, at least on the finish, where ice cream, it's got a creaminess to it, a richness, a roundness. John's picking up a little bit of prune, so the character of the fruit on the palate is a little bit more raisinated, a little bit hotter than it is on the nose. There is a real volume to the wine at the finish, certainly supported and buttressed by that tannin. What about the structure of this wine? Let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about acid, we talked about body weight, we talked about tannin. Where's the alcohol at for this for you? You guys put it at a moderate alcohol, a high alcohol? Are you getting any kind of throat burn? Should we be considering something like, I don't know, Malbec from Cahors or Tannat from Maturin if we're in France? Some of that tannin is there. I don't know that we'd get sort of this reddish character, but maybe the Cahors Malbec, and I think we've done that before, so if he's doing that again, it's not the highest alcohol, I don't think. Yeah, so Chris, I agree with you. It's not quite the highest, but yeah, maybe we'd be pushing at 13.5, 14. I don't think this is 14.5, 15. And if it is, it's wearing it extremely well. We're at 20 minutes in. The wine is still pressingly tannic for me. It has some of that prune element, some of that still fresh fruit element, and it has definitely that earthen undertone still happening. Kathy's noting more purplish flowers and purple kind of fruit quality that isn't necessarily as redolent in this particular wine. Got a little bit off the nose initially. The tannin structure is kind of what I'm wrestling with. And Carignan, I kind of like that idea. I also kind of like that idea because I'm not sure we've done a Carignan before, so that's, I'm not playing the wine, I'm playing the game. Has this wine changed for anyone? Kristen, how is this wine for you, Scott, right now? Is it oh yeah. Ooh, man. Just poured the second little bit in here just to kind of get it going, and wow. A dry aged steak, just the outside before you cook it. It smells just like that, kind of a tartare steak element. It's really meaty. Ooh. And yes, Anthony, I agree completely. It's changing. Some of that tannin is a little bit, tiny bit softening, but the aromas are coming out. It's way more secondary. So Carignan, interesting idea. Red fruit, you get some of this kind of tannin profile. You get a warmer climate typically. Carignan, Syrah, Grenache Syrah, Mourvedre blend, Carmenere, Shiraz. All those places. We're definitely talking about sort of the Rhone and south in France. We'd be talking about a pretty cool site in Australia, maybe, if we're talking about Shiraz. I'm not as keen on that. We were talking about Zinfandel, so principally we'd be talking about Italy, or i.e. a Primitivo kind of coming from Italy, or from the States, California, and I'm not sure all of that earth, that meat, would lead me there. I've never tasted a Zin that smelled like that, and if that was the case, it'd be pretty neat. So I'm kind of back to Europe personally. How about you guys? Ooh. Tannins are still very present. Jan's picking up a little bit of roasted mushroom. Chris is agreeing that it's definitely an old world wine. John likes the GSM South of France 2016. Ooh, yeah, nice. Solid. No pulling any punches there. That's great. And there's definitely a quality about this that I might put it a little bit more youthful than the 16. Just because of the tannin profile, but maybe it has a little bit more Mourvedre in it, and it's thusly a little bit more structured. Yeah, what if that is? Huh. Melanie likes France. The Sanders like France. Could this be Amarone? No, I don't. I mean, some of that pruniness, some of that raisin quality, yeah, but I think we'd get a darker wine. We would be not in the sort of ruby garnet kind of world. We'd be much more in the purple, deeper world, I think. The richness is here, though, and I don't know, that tannin is sound. I guess you could make an argument for that, but I just get a different fruit profile typically. Robert. I think that's where how I would puzzle that one through. There's a chance, and I think one for sure you'd get a lot more heat. It's just a lot more alcohol. So, and Chris is always there for us to shore up the idea based on price. This is too cheap for Amarone. Yeah, that's probably true. At 25 bucks, I don't know of any Amarone I could even bring in cost-wise at that price. So that's pretty fair. We could put that away. Petite Syrah, that would be interesting too. I don't know about that. I really don't know about the meatiness. The fruitiness, for sure, but whew, this is really meaty, which takes me right back to Syrah, and maybe carrying on. So Melanie says there's a $17 Amarone at TJ's. Ooh, cool. That's awesome. And it's really yummy. That's remarkable. That's really very affordable. That's cool. So that'd be a nice way to try an Amarone for those of you that want to get your hands on something and just experiment with it. Okay, so if we're in France, most of us, and we're thinking about GSM, as John said, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. We're thinking about Carignan, perhaps, as Chris noted. Kathy had thrown out Syrah before, kind of Northern Rhone, I'm assuming. Northern Rhone Syrah. I think that's where I'm headed. If we were in southern France, I think I'd get a little bit warmer quality to the wine. The tannins here are really pronounced, but I think I'd get a little more heat if we were further south. And I think some of that cooling climate element is what I'm picking up. The cool Mistral winds blow over and keep temperatures kind of moderated in the northern part of the Rhone, and the northern part of the Rhone is where you find Syrah. And just the aromas that we're picking up. So I might go 2018 Crozes Hermitage, which the village of Hermitage sits and faces kind of east-southeast on the river, and around, so if Hermitage is, let's say, a slope like that, you have the Crozes Hermitage, which kind of sits around it and doesn't quite seem to have the same aspect. And so it gives you usually a little more accessible, kind of easygoing Syrah. I think if I was to critique my own flag here at the moment, it would be because the tannins are a bit stronger than I would associate with the Crozes Hermitage. But the aroma and the other qualities of this wine are pretty powerful Syrah indicators. So that's maybe where I'm going to go. Where is everybody else going to go? Kathy's throwing out GSM, but not planting her flag in the Rhone or even France. That's all she's got tonight. Jan's liking a blend. And Kristen's about a half hour, 20 minutes ahead of us, or me at least, and she's saying the tannins are getting much softer, around the 40-minute mark for her. So neat that this is changing so much. As Chris is noting, he's getting a little bit of strawberry right now. David, you're throwing out Syrah. It's got a lot of tannin. I'm not sure I'm right about this, but I think that's where I'm going to stay. Chris, where are you going to stay? Are you going to go back to Carignan? What's your vote? Anthony's going with the GSM. Todd's going Northern Rhone Syrah 1718. I think it has some Merlot characteristics for sure. I think you could argue that point, Chris, for sure. And I wouldn't ding you points on putting that down. I'm struggling really with the tannin. So I'm going to learn something tonight about the tannin and where it belongs like this. It has elements that I could argue for a Merlot blend. I could argue for a GSM blend. I could argue for Carignan even, Carignan Sanso, kind of a maybe Carignan Sanso Syrah blend from southern France. Chris is kind of throwing that out there. Thank you. Merlot, Carignan, possibly Sanso blend. That actually encapsulates all of it, sort of a cheating guess I was thinking in my head, but I think it's probably the most sensible guess in terms of, hey, we just described kind of all those elements. Why not think about a blend? So, all right, Chris is going to put us in a a fun kind of Merlot Carignan Sanso blend, kind of southern France, maybe Languedoc Roussillon kind of situation. Yeah, Jan's going Merlot. Jan Nelson's going Syrah. All right, so I think we got there. 17, 18, 16 on a GSM blend, kind of Côte du Rhône style production. So we're in a range, a youthful wine. Oh man. Domaine de Tourelle. This is 100% Merlot from France. So Domaine de Tourelle, I believe, it's an IGP. This comes in, and if I remember correctly, this is sort of in the southeastern part of France, and it's 17. I've got 18 on the back of my label. Do you have 17 on your labels? Do we get part 17, part 18? That'd be interesting. I believe this wine is brought in by Olivier Daubresse, who we work with for a number of French wines. And I think this winery, if I recall correctly from him, is like right next to where his mom lives. And he's been right in this neighborhood forever and just happened one day to kind of go across and taste their wines and began to represent them and bring them in. So this is neat because it had so much Merlot character. We talked about plum, we talked about some of that structure, but from a very different place. It's coming from a spot that we don't know or don't taste as often. Certainly not being 100% Merlot, which is neat. So this is 18 for most people. Okay, good. Yeah, this is neat because it's also 13.5. It's not a super hot wine, so we're kind of right on the body, which is cool. So as an exercise, we identified a bunch of aroma. We got a whole bunch of interesting things from the characteristics in the wine and on the palate. And we got ourselves close, but there's really no reference point for sort of a southern, southeastern kind of Merlot. So knowing that would be difficult. And I think that's kind of a fun part about blind tasting, because you really do pick up on certain things and don't have that bias, and you learn some stuff. I agree, Kathy. This was a fun one from Tony. And Melanie, you're not wrong to then say right bank, right? Like if you're smelling Merlot characteristic and you're in a blind tasting and you don't have a reference point for where this wine comes from, you should go right bank. And so you get points for that. Jan's final note there, dirty prunes. And I think that's pretty neat because that's kind of what you're tasting here. That plummy quality went into prune, and it is turning on now. I mean, it's definitely tasting a lot more interesting. This is a wine that needed a minute to be opened. And Robert, that's a really great point. I don't know how many points that we've all been completely fooled, and this is certainly one of those wines. He's fooled us with a Merlot, of all things, too. The ubiquitous Merlot, right? Next time he'll fool us with the Chardonnay. I doubt that. But that's one of the things we said first, like this could be Merlot. So, but I didn't have a place to put that Merlot with those tannins, and that's neat. So, cool wine, great group. I think we got major points. I mean, I'd give us at least a B plus A minus on this one, because I don't know that anybody would be calling an IGP Pays d'Oc, so the Pays d'Oc Centennial kind of Merlot. That's not a category, but it's a fun wine for sure. And I bet you it was amazing with your steak, Kelly. That tannin and the rareness of a steak, hopefully that was just perfectly cooked, is going to bond with that tannin and soften this wine out a little bit and allow all those earthy, meaty tones to come through. What a perfect match on a perfect evening with a great group of folks. So thank you, everyone. I will see you back on Thursday, and we'll do it again. Cheers, everybody.